My husband's friend's member is excessively large, genuine betrayal narrative. The evening I found myself in Liam's room turned into one of the most memorable nights of my life. It began on a seemingly uneventful Monday. I reclined in my bed, gazing at the ceiling, the rhythmic tick of the clock on my nightstand counting each fleeting second. I had been struggling to find restful sleep for weeks. The bed seemed excessively spacious, the void next to me a persistent reminder of my husband's frequent absences. He mentioned that his job kept him out late. At times, he simply wouldn't return, asserting that he was too exhausted from a client dinner or a business trip to undertake the drive. I had long ceased to question it, yet the encroaching silence that lingered felt foreboding, as if a part of me had been quietly fading away without my awareness. Liam, in contrast, had been residing in our guest room for the past year. He and my husband shared a long-standing friendship, so when Liam found himself in need of a temporary home between jobs, I consented. As time passed, I began to observe aspects of him that had previously escaped my notice. He was now 24, possessing a distinct strength in his physique. And he moved with a self-assurance that was impossible to overlook. The once playful guy, known for leaving soda cans scattered about, had changed into someone entirely different, someone who made my heart race with confusion, and at times, a thrilling sense of the forbidden. I reprimanded myself for experiencing these emotions. What type of woman finds herself drawn to a friend living in her own home? Yet the more I attempted to suppress these thoughts, the more powerful they grew. Late that Monday night, a subtle rustle of footsteps in the hallway disrupted the tranquility. My heart raced and I paused, attuned to the fading sounds around me. It's only Liam, likely just looking for a drink of water. I reassured myself, but still, my hands trembled. I shut my eyes tightly and focused on calming myself down. He's merely a tenant, a companion. Yet the tension remained unyielding. I was unaware of the reasons, only that a change was occurring within me. The following morning, I discovered Liam in the kitchen, casually leaning against the counter, cradling a mug of coffee. The sunlight streaming through the window accentuated the contours of his face, casting a delicate golden hue over his skin. He looked up as I entered, giving a slight smile. "Morning," he said. His voice low and slightly raspy. "Morning." I found myself tinkering with the coffee maker, pushing through the urge to glance his way. "Did you have trouble sleeping last night?" he inquired. "What makes you say that?" I responded, taken aback. He shrugged, savoring a sip. "I noticed you restless in your sleep. I sensed that something could be troubling you." I released a laugh that came out a bit too quickly. "There's a lot swirling around in my thoughts, I suppose." He nodded with a contemplative expression. "Same," he said. And that solitary word hung in the air, thick with an unspoken weight that neither of us dared to acknowledge. That afternoon, I found myself in the living room, folding laundry while the TV softly hummed in the background. Liam lounged on the couch, idly scrolling through his phone. It ought to have been completely mundane, yet my gaze kept wandering to him. "Do you ever take on the task of folding laundry, or is that solely my responsibility?" I playfully prodded, attempting to stitch. Andy relaxed. He raised his head, a lopsided smile spreading across his face. "I believe that was your sole privilege. I wouldn't want to take it from you. Oh, you're just infuriating," I retorted. Tossing a crumpled sock in his direction. He seized it, chuckling, then sent it back in a soft, graceful curve. Okay, I'm here to assist." He slipped off the couch and crouched beside me. Picking up a fresh towel. He folded it with unexpected skill. I gazed at him with a hint of amusement. "It seems there's much I'm yet to discover about you," I noted. He cast me a look, a warmth present that sent shivers down my arms. "You might be astonished by the extent of my capabilities. When I put my mind to it." My heart raced at his tone. His words carried a playful charm. Yet there was a deeper layer beneath the surface. I turned my gaze, concentrating on the crumpled t-shirt I held in my hands. "Well, let's see how consistent you are," I quipped, managing a laugh that felt a bit too light. "Anything to simplify your existence," he whispered. My cheeks flushed at the gentle quality of his voice. That evening, I retired early. Yet slumber eluded me. My husband was out again, leaving the bed beside me empty. As midnight crept in, I discovered a profound loneliness within me that I hadn't fully acknowledged. The vision of Liam's subtle smile and the silent worry reflected in his eyes lingered in my mind. For countless months, I had been deprived of the sensation of being acknowledged. I came to understand that this was precisely the way Liam made me feel, seen and cherished. Then arrived the moment I never anticipated. I sensed a stir in the hallway, and my heart skipped a beat. I had promised myself to stay in my room, to avoid any impulsive actions, yet some force within me urged me onward, pulling me from the warmth of my bed and guiding me down the quiet corridor. Until I found myself before Liam's partially ajar door. Though my mind protested loudly, urging me to retreat, I resolutely pushed the door open. A soft glow from a muted lamp painted shadows across the walls. Liam's back was slightly turned. He perched on the edge of his bed, his shoulders taut with tension. My breath caught as I realized he was holding something in his hands, a small photograph that seemed to be of me. The edges appeared somewhat frayed, as if he had been caressing it for solace. He was completely unaware of my arrival. I watched as he ran his thumb softly over my face in the picture, an almost tender gesture. My chest constricted with a surge of disbelief, intrigue, and an unexpected, disquieting excitement. "Liam," I murmured. Startled, he spun around abruptly, the photo slipping from his grasp. Upon seeing me, a look of shock briefly crossed his face, quickly replaced by a blush that suggested he felt a bit embarrassed. He hurried to grab the picture, clutching it to his chest as if to conceal it. "I apologized. I didn't mean to." His words faded into silence. My heart raced so intensely, I believed he could sense it. I closed the door softly, moving ahead with purpose. "That's a picture of me," I murmured softly. "Where did you acquire that?" He swallowed, his gaze flickering elsewhere. "A couple of years ago, during a barbecue, it was taken. I found myself with it somehow, and I held on to it." He hesitated, his voice falling to a whisper. "I apologize. I understand it might seem unusual, I just sometimes I gaze at it and ponder whether you find joy. This photo captures a sense of freedom in you." Heat washed over my face. I ought to have felt anger or been unsettled, yet his confession tugged at my heartstrings. "What makes you believe I'm not happy?" I compelled a fragile chuckle. "I'm in a committed relationship, I possess a lovely residence, and I follow a structured daily schedule." He sat there, shoulders slumped, meeting my gaze with an intensity that shook me to my core. "I believe you deserve more," he murmured softly, "and I realize I might not be the best person to say that, yet, whenever I encounter you, I feel an absence. As if you bear the burden of the world by yourself." I wished to reject it, yet the words eluded me. Instead, I found myself inching nearer, captivated by the raw vulnerability reflected in his gaze. I settled onto the bed beside him, careful not to encroach on his space. The photograph lingered tightly in his grasp, the soft glow illuminated my features on that tiny sheet of paper, capturing a smile from a fleeting moment I could hardly recall. I whispered, still stunned, "You keep my picture. What is the reason?" His eyes darted to the ground. "Because I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach turned over. In that brief silence, words eluded us both. The stillness enveloped us, punctuated only by the rhythm of our breaths. Irregular and electric, outside, the house was eerily silent. For a moment, it seemed as though the whole universe had contracted to encompass only the two of us in this close, wobbly setting. "Liam," I started, my voice quivering, "you know I'm married." He offered a subtle nod, breathing out unsteadily. "I understand. I dislike how incorrect this could be, however. I don't dislike the way I feel when I'm with you." Everything within me came apart. Before I could restrain my impulses, I found myself reaching out and lightly grazing my fingertips along his forearm. He exhaled deeply, flipping his hand palm up, inviting our fingers to intertwine. The connection was charged, as if it validated countless unexpressed emotions. I've attempted to brush it aside, I confessed, my heart racing in my chest. "Attempted to act as if you're merely a companion, or an old acquaintance of my husband. However, I can no longer deceive myself. I feel a sense of solitude. And you truly acknowledge my presence. He tightened his grip on my hand, drawing me nearer. The warmth of his body surrounded me, and a surge of desire sparked within my veins. We were near enough now that I could discern the subtle stubble on his jaw, the quick rise and fall of his chest. "I don't want you to feel alone anymore," he said gently, his words, straightforward yet brimming with feeling, shattered the final strand of my composure. I leaned in, pressing my lips to his distracted kiss. It began softly, with both of us cautious, our hearts racing in a blend of thrill and trepidation. As he returned the kiss, it deepened, and I became lost in the intense sensation of it. My hand navigated to the back of his neck, his fingers weaving through my hair. We separated for a moment, struggling to catch our breath. His eyes darted to the photograph still resting in his lap, then returned to me. A tremulous laugh slipped from my lips, part sob, part release. I can hardly fathom that we are actually going through with this. He pressed his forehead gently against mine. "I've envisioned it countless times. My heart contorted. "I ought not to feel joy about that," I murmured. "However, I am." The ensuing moments melded into a haze of intertwined bodies and whispered gasps. The weight of betraying my marriage loomed in my thoughts, yet it was overshadowed by an intense longing to be wanted, to be desired. For once I felt truly alive, as if my heartbeats were my own once more, and from the way Liam held me, it felt as though he shared that same intense spark of desperation. In the end, we found ourselves lying next to each other on his bed, the photograph resting quietly by the pillow, a mute observer of our hidden truth. I could scarcely comprehend the events that had just unfolded, realizing I had ventured into territory I never imagined I would dare to explore. Outside, the soft illumination of the moon seeped through the curtains, creating fragmented bands of light across the walls. "What's next?" I inquired softly, my fingertips gliding over his forearm. He trembled at the contact, yet remained still. "I don't know," he admitted, tilting his head so our gazes could connect. "I simply know that I have no regrets about this." A tear rolled down my cheek, a mix of relief, fear, and a hint of hope swirling within me. "I didn't either," I managed, though my voice faltered. "However, everything is set to change from this point forward." He nodded, lines of concern weaving across his forehead. "I understand. I apologize if I've complicated things for you." I quieted him with a gentle kiss, allowing my lips to express what my words could not. We stayed there for a while, enveloped in a delicate tranquility. Two souls ensnared in a fleeting moment they both understood was not meant to endure. At last, I managed to lift myself up. The clock on his nightstand indicated it was just after 3 in the morning. "I should go," I whispered, the realization settling in that I had to return to my own bedroom before dawn. "Could we have a conversation tomorrow? We must find a solution to this." He nodded, rising to sit alongside me. With care he lifted the photograph and placed it into the drawer of his nightstand, as if securely hiding away a beloved secret. My eyes were drawn to that drawer, a flush creeping to my cheeks at the idea that he had been holding my image just moments before I entered. "I'll be here," he stated plainly. I hesitated at the threshold, glancing back for a final glimpse. The yearning in his gaze rendered departure almost unthinkable. I closed the door behind me, every step toward my room stirring fresh waves of uncertainty and a forbidden thrill. I pondered whether the silence of the home would somehow expose my treachery. Guilt settled in my chest, yet alongside it flickered a small spark of euphoria. Throughout the night, slumber continued to evade me. My thoughts swirled with uncertainty. Should I feel a sense of shame? Should I share this with my husband? Should I stay with him or walk away? Could Liam and I ever really find our way to each other? I was unable to respond to any of them. All I knew was that the void I had experienced had, for one night, been filled by a feeling of connection I hadn't realized I craved so intensely. In the days that followed, we moved cautiously around each other in the light, exchanging glances in the kitchen or living room that conveyed more than any words could express. In the quiet of night, when solitude embraced us, our feelings would surge forth once more, kisses taken in secret behind closed doors, whispered truths shared softly, fingers grazing beneath the table. It was exhilarating, audacious, and shrouded in mystery. A part of me yearned to bring it to a close, to distance myself from him before the situation deteriorated further, yet another aspect. The one that ignited warmth after an extended chill, clung to Liam, as if he were my final lifeline. I remain uncertain about what lies ahead. My husband stays completely unaware. I find myself caught in a struggle, weighed down by the promises I made in my marriage and the undeniable feelings that have grown between Liam and me. I can't hold him responsible. I made this choice as well. All I know is that, for the first time in ages, I feel wanted, desired, and heartbreakingly alive. What am I supposed to do? A tiny piece of me wishes that someone might provide the answers I seek but cannot find. Another part of me questions whether I will ever possess the strength to do what is right, whatever that may entail.